I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. I think it's going to be an exciting day. Actually, I think it's going to be a pivotal day in the movement in terms of connectivity, enthusiasm, inspiration, transparency, real accountability to each other. When I was a dairy farmer down here at Colac, I was reading Bucky's book. You all would be aware of Buckminster Fuller. There's many quotes that you can attribute to this fella, but this particular quote was one which really resonated with me because I was pretty angry, obviously selling milk, being a dairy farmer, selling milk to Coles and Woolies and not having any clue where it was coming from and being paid around about 22, 23 cents a litre. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. You build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete, and I couldn't quite get into the whole activism thing. And when I joined, after many years of isolation, 7 years, setting up a CSA in the Tasmanian wilderness, and then FO actually contacted me because they'd written a book called Towards Community Supported Agriculture, but it was still very activist in its intent, and I deliberately called myself an actionist inside of that movement. And then not long after I left that role and set up Food Connect because I wanted to put solutions on the ground and actually, do as Bucky said, put something on the ground that makes the existing model obsolete. And I think, that's one of the most powerful things that we can do. There's an enormous amount of resources in fighting the existing reality, but I think if we start to move resources into creating a new system, we can do enormous things. And I think that's what I'm bloody sure that's what tomorrow's going to be about. So a couple of things that resonated with me, and obviously there was a lot of information in the previous 6 speakers, Aaron, Ben, Mick, Tammy, Julia and just then Kirsten. A lot of information. You can get a sense through what they were saying and what in the enthusiasm and the sort of the chutzpah that they're putting out there that we've got a hold of something pretty mighty. The people who are entering this movement are up to a bit of mischief, but in a professional way. They're wanting to bring skills and honour and values, a deep set of ingrained values. So they're coming from the heart, but they want to do it in a mischievous way to intervene in the current system and show how it should be done. With a lot of ethics and with a lot of values and with a sort of a sense of camaraderie and solidarity, as Nick would go on about the whole solidarity thing. I sort of see it as a sense of society is slowly waking up to that. What I do to you, I actually am doing to myself, and this oneness in the world is something that is starting to become apparent to a lot of people. If we're to survive, if we're to say, are we going to draw a line in the sand and say humanity is around for the next 1,000 years, or not at all on the current trends? And that's the big question. And I think this movement is saying, no, we're going to be around for 1,000 years. We're going to be around for 1,000 years. And we're going to honour our kids, and we're going to honour our grandkids, and we're going to honour the people who come into this movement. And when David said, to wrap something up today about this, what separates us from the other system? Why is this movement? Why is this new creative food economies going to be incredibly important in the survival of humanity? Is, as Aaron said, it's the biggest problem on the face of the planet. We are the biggest polluters, the biggest water users. The list goes on. The biggest soil degraders, probably the biggest abusers of slavery. We're in slavery, big time. If you looked at the whole of agriculture. So you flip that around and you say, well, actually, we're the biggest solvers of those problems. We're actually the biggest solution on the planet. And Ben showing that with Taranaki Farm, Kirsten showing that with the Open Food Web. and so many of you in here, because I'm very aware that I'm surrounded by a lot of amazing people with great minds, great intellects, and great hearts. So, you know, harnessing that is the tricky bit, because the final frontier for humanity is to get fucking along. I said this at the foodpreneurs event last week. You know, a lot of people sort of, it's the final frontier. And we're actually getting close to a tipping point. You know, you see soccer teams between Israeli and Jewish people. You see amazing things, but they're not in the mainstream media. But we know it because we read Yes magazine, we read The Intelligent Optimist, we read Resurgent magazine, we read Spade and Barrow, I think it was called, one of the former leaders of Second Bite. You know, that's extraordinary. Someone who's saying, you know, okay, so there's this organic and there's these niche gourmet sort of things happening in the small, you know, micro food distribution sector, but what's happening for the mainstream farmers? What are we doing for the mainstream? These farmers who are absolutely being, they're being absolutely tumbled. So it was great to see that sort of thing happening. So one of the, some of the aspirations, I suppose we could sort of head forward tomorrow when we're talking about it, let's set a goal of, say, something like, 50,000 new social enterprises in the food space by 2050. You know, let's set some big, hairy goals for ourselves. That's going to take a lot of collaboration, a lot of networks, a lot of unification. And that'll make that existing model obsolete. You know, Coles and Woolies own 80% of the market. That's 80% for us to take because they're doing it in penny shares. So there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of if you look at the whole of the food industry, it encompasses a lot of things. You know, there's access to farmland. There's food distribution, and that was the first cab off the rank when I got pushed off my land and forced into the Tasmanian wilderness. I wasn't going to give up. That was the first cab off the rank. Can we do food distribution, pay farmers well, and have a lot of fun? And were city folk up for this bigger game? And they bloody well were, because they gave us $40,000 before we even started, and then they gave us another $40,000 when we had to move warehouse. Completely, like 12 months. You know, so there's some exciting things in the money side of things, and we're honoured. We should be honoured to, we are honoured to have Michael Schumann here from America, who's leading the whole localisation revival in the States and putting some good economic soundness to it. So, so there's a lot of things to be excited about. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of women in the game, which is even more exciting. That's one of the hallmarks. I think for those of you at the Foodpreneurs event last week, the more women in the game, right across the sector, the world is, like what's the old saying? The world is our possibility, or something, some crazy saying like that. You get it. But it is going to take, going beyond those the quick wins. It's going to be about the relationships, understandings, really getting down to, well, why are these farmers? Why are these farmers getting a letter from ANZ Bank or NAB or Westpac? Getting into that conversation with the farmer. With yourselves, with your own position. Where are we actually at right now? What's our financial position? What's our soul position? What's our head position in terms of thinking? So those real authentic conversations are the starting place, and that's what I think tomorrow is going to be about. Is where are we at? Where actually are we at? Not some sort of hyper, elevated position of where we're at, but where are we really at? What are our deepest yearnings, and what are we fucking failing at? So, that's it. Yeah.